Hello and welcome to this deep dive pre-work video, the last one of phase 1. In this video, we're going to be installing Webstorm and creating our first code repository and project. I'm doing this on Linux, but the steps are very similar for Windows and Mac. I will articulate out where there are significant differences. So the first thing we want to do is install Webstorm. Open a new browser and go to jetbrains.com/student. This is the URL that you will need to go to get an educational license, which will get you this software for free. So scroll down to individual licenses for students and teachers, click the Apply Now button, and it will take you to this form. I already have a JetBrains account, so I'm not going to fill out this form, but it should be pretty self-explanatory. The one thing to make special note of is this email address field. You will need to use your @cnm.edu email address in order for this registration to take correctly. So fill out the form, go down here, click Apply for Free Products. You may have to verify your email account. When you do, you will have a JetBrains account, which will allow you to get a key for any software that you wish to install. So go ahead and do that. Once you are finished, go to the JetBrains main site. If you still have this page up, you can do so by clicking on the JetBrains logo. You can also go directly to jetbrains.com. And once you're there, click Tools and go down to Webstorm. And it will bring you to a page right here, which has a large download button. Again, I actually have Webstorm installed already. I'm not going to walk through this. However, the process should be fairly self-explanatory. The default configuration that comes up is all fine. So download this, install it, and then come back to this video once you're finished. You can pause the video for now. Okay, so you're back. You have Webstorm installed. You are ready to go on to the next part of the process. Next thing you are going to want to do is go to GitHub and create a new repository. So I'm opening up a new tab. Go to github.com. Click Enter. If you are not already signed in, make sure you sign in. Once you do so, you should see this green New Repository button. Go ahead and click it. You can leave repository template and owner the same. Repository name will be Prework Phase 1 here. And the description is going to be Phase 1 of the Bootcamp Prework. Leave it public. We're going to initialize this repository with a README file and with a license. Choose the Apache License 2.0. This makes your code open source, which we'll be talking more about in the bootcamp, but we want to make sure that it is public and has a license and the README for now. Click Create Repository. And you should see this. Notice that it has a license, has a README, as we told it to. We want to add one more file. So add file, create new file, and name your file .git, G-I-T, ignore. So this is going to tell Git to ignore certain configuration and sensitive files on our computer when we're actually committing these things. If you don't put this in here, you can inadvertently copy configuration or other sensitive information to your repository. So we want to do /.idea. This is a JetBrains specific folder which has configuration for your user on Webstorm. We want to make sure to keep that out. We also want to do .ds underscore capital S-T-O-R-E, DS store, which is a Mac specific file that it uses to store folder information. We want to make sure both of those two things are in there. So once you've added those two lines, scroll down to commit new file, and let's give it a commit message. Adding git ignore file. Click commit new file. When you do so, notice that it shows up here. In addition to our license and our README, we now have a git ignore file. So we've got this up in GitHub. We want to get it down to our local computer. So go ahead and click on code. Make sure that you have, of these three, make sure you have SSH highlighted. Click on it if it is not. When it says, it should start with git at github.com, and then click the clipboard icon next to it to copy it to your clipboard. So we've created this. Now we want to make sure that we have a directory in which we can actually store our projects. So I'm going to open up my file browser. This is going to be similar for you guys for Windows or Mac. Windows, you'll want to open the File Explorer. Mac, you'll want to find the file system. So Files, and I'm going to go to Desktop. If you do not have a Bootcamp folder, create one. I'm going to click in Bootcamp, and I'm going to create a new folder called Git. And I'm going to create it. Now that's and by doing this, this is giving us a single location in which to store all of our code projects. By doing that, it's much easier for us to find where this code is, and especially if you want to come to us instructors and say, hey, can you help us with this? We will often need to know where your folders are located, and if you keep them all in one directory, this will make your life much easier. So I've created this Git directory. Now we're going to go to Webstorm. So when you open this for the first time, it may ask you to say to go through a little bit of configuration. Feel free to just pick the defaults are fine, or if you'd like, you can take a look at it. So you should see this. This is the Webstorm welcome screen. We want to click Get from Version Control. Leave version control as Git if it's selected. If it's not, make sure that it is. For the URL, we're going to paste what we just got, which is git@github.com, and then your username and your repo. So, and then down here where it says directory, you're going to want, it should already have desktop and it might have bootcamp in it. Make sure you have a path to here by clicking on this, going to desktop, bootcamp, git, click OK, and then after that we want to make sure that we add our project specific folder, which will be created. Prework phase 1, which will put this all in the folder called Prework phase 1 within our desktop bootcamp git directory. So go ahead and hit clone. It'll take it a bit. It'll pull it up. And we now have a project. Notice that we have a gitignore, a license, and a readme. These are the things that we've already taken. And notice this has this .idea and .ds store. So this is exactly the same things that we have here. By doing this, we have pulled this down to our local computer. So we want to go ahead and create a new file and a new deployment. So first, right-click on Prework phase 1, click New, click File, and name it index.html. Hit Add. And so we have this file now, and we're going to use this to test our deployment to see if it works. So go to Tools, Deployment, Configuration. It's going to bring up this window right here. Hit the plus symbol. Go to SFTP. Not FTP or FTPS, but SFTP for Secure File Transfer Protocol. New server name, call it Shared Bootcamp Server. Hit OK. We are going to need to create a new SSH configuration. Go here, click on those boxes, or on that box with the 3 dots, click plus. Uncheck visible only for this project because we're going to want this to actually be applicable to multiple of our projects. In host, we're going to type the name of our server, which for us is ddc webstudent.cnm.edu. Port is going to be 22. Username is going to be your CNM username. Local port you can leave blank. Authentication type, make sure you put OpenSSH and Authentication Agent. Go ahead and click Test Connection. If you get this correctly, you're good to go. If you don't, this means either you filled something out incorrectly on this screen, or you do not actually have your key working, in which case you need to refer back to one of the previous videos to make sure that that's working. Once you have this working, hit Apply, and then OK. It will bring you back to our web server configuration. But now we should have this filled out with the SSH configuration we just did. So for root path, we want to go ahead and click auto detect. This will start us off, but not actually finish us. We go home, your username / public _ HTML / prework pre-work phase -1. And then for web server URL, we want to make it HTTPS ddc web student.cnm.edu / and then a tilde symbol, which is in the upper left of your keyboard usually, your username, your CNM username, that is, / pre-work phase 1. And this is the location where you can view your files. This root path is the location where your files on the server, where your files will be uploaded to. So this is where you can see them on the web. This is where you actually will be deploying them to. There's one more thing that you need to make sure that you do, and this is very easy to miss. Go to mappings and deployment path and make sure you put a / there. If you don't, this is not going to work. So go back to connection, hit OK. And now let's test that our deployment is working correctly. Right click on the root of your project, go down to deployment and click upload to shared bootcamp server. Oh, and I did indeed forget to do something. So let's do that first. We need to connect to our server and actually create the folder that we want to write to. So this is a very common thing to do. You may find this happening in other projects as well. So connect to the server. For Windows users, you're going to be using PuTTY to do this. For Mac or Linux, you're going to use the terminal. So I'm going to click over here to get to my terminal. Previous videos walked you through how to do this. And then I'm going to SSH my username at ddc web student.cnm.edu. And then I'm going to cd or change directory. So this is what Mac, Linux, and Windows people all should do once they're connected. cd public _ HTML. And if you did it correctly, you'll see public HTML come back to you. And then say mkdir for make a directory. And we want to actually create the directory that we actually want to put this in. So we're going to call this pre-work phase -1. Hit enter. Once you do that, it is now created. Go back to Webstorm and let's try this again. Right click, select deployment, select upload to shared bootcamp server. If you've done this correctly, let's hope that we've got it this time. Yes, you will see messages that say it basically is uploading 4 different files. And then it says upload to shared bootcamp server completed in time, and says 4 files were transferred. That's good. That's what we want to see. So if you see this, this means that you have your deployment correctly configured. So let's actually create our index file. So in index.html, it should be open for you, but if not, you can double click it over here. And let's start writing some code, some HTML. So first off, we want to give it a little bit of basic information about what kind of file this is. We're going to give it a doc type. We are also going to give it an HTML language of English. And this is, and make sure you delete that /HTML tag that it gives you is actually Webstorm being overly helpful. We actually don't want that. That can actually cause some errors for this particular tag. We also want to create a header. Now this is stuff that's not going to display on our screen, but tells browsers or other people who are going to be looking at this file important information about our file. So we're going to say what character set this is. That tells browsers what kind of characters we're going to be using. The UTF-8 is a very common language that has a lot of different a very common characters that accommodates a lot of different languages around the world. And we are going to give it a title. this is for us to decide. We're going to call this pre-work phase 1. Then we're going to go down here below the head, and we're going to create the body. And we're going to write some paragraphs in here of text. Actually, before we do that, above that, let's write a header. We should always have a header. So H1 is our header tag, not to be confused with our head, but H1 is our main level header, which is every site, every page should have one of these. Basically, it says what the page is about. So in our case, it's going to be the same as what we did the title, pre-work phase 1. They're not always the same, but they're often the same. Let's go back to this paragraph tag we created. And let's type some information about what we're actually doing. So Git is version control software that we run on our computer. GitHub, on the other hand, is a remote web application that works with Git to help us collaborate and share our code with others. Thirdly, DDC Webstudent.cnm.edu is the bootcamp server that runs our code. So it's important to understand the difference between these three things. Git is local to your machine. We run it on our computer, like our local machine locally. GitHub is a remote repository that stores the code that we write. So in order for us to get our code onto GitHub, we are going to have to actually push it to that repository. And GitHub is different from the server. The server is what actually runs your code, that actually makes it visible on as a web page. So like GitHub will just show you code. It will not show you a rendered web page. DDC Webstudent.cnm.edu is the bootcamp server. That is what actually allows you to see your page as a web page. So let's put some more information in here. We add and commit our code to Git on our computer. We push our code from our computer to GitHub. Oops, paragraph. We deploy our code from our computer to the bootcamp server. And this is the key thing. If you understand this, you have gotten what you need from the pre-work. Deploy and push are different. So understand that when we deploy to the server, which runs our code. When we push to GitHub, which is a storage place for our code. Those are the two things that you want to understand about how GitHub and the server are different. So we now have our file. Let's go ahead and upload it one more time. So when we've made these changes, I'll make it all locally. We have to again upload this to our server to make sure that this is working correctly. So let's right-click. Click Deployment, click Upload to Shared Bootcamp Server. It should go just fine. And now, because we actually have something in here, we should be able to actually see it. So let's take a look and go up here to the upper right. There will be some browsers. You can open it in whichever you like. I'll open it in Chrome. And if you did it correctly, you will see this here with what you just typed. So if you see this, that's great. That is exactly what you want. This URL is one of the two things you are going to need to turn in for this project. For every project as part of the class, you're going to need to turn in your deployment URL, which is this one, which remember is on the server. So it starts out with ddc/DDC-web-student.cnm.edu. And then you are also going to need to turn in your GitHub URL, which we will get in just a second. So we've got this, it's working, but it is not yet up on GitHub. So we need to do that next. So let's commit and push our work to GitHub. So if you look up here in the upper right corner of Webstorm, there's a check mark. Click it. It will bring up a panel over here with some things that basically tell you what you're doing. We want to write a commit message. Your commit message should describe what happened since the last commit you did. In our case, it was we wrote this index.html file. So let's just say added index.html file. And go down here. Don't click commit. If you do commit, that's fine, but you need to push as well. So commit and push. It will bring up another screen for you. Here, you are going to be going to this. The defaults will all be fine. You click push. It will say down here pushing, and then eventually it will say pushed one or commit to origin main. That is how that means that it is going well. Let's take a look in GitHub. Go back to our browser, go to GitHub, refresh our page, and notice that we have an index.html file. It will also, and it has all of the code that we wrote. So, if you click back to your Prework Phase 1 directory, you will have something that looks like this. Take this URL, and this is the second URL you need. So again, the two URLs you are going to need to turn in is this one that shows you your rendered page, and this one, which is your GitHub repository with all the code you wrote. You are going to turn both of those in via Slack to your instructor channel, which is the channel that is web and then a number and then your name, and submit that there, and we instructors will take a look at it and verify it. And assuming that you have that good to go, and you feel comfortable with what's here in this video, you are set to go on to Prework Phase 2. Congratulations, and thank you for watching.